Hey everyone, it's me, Corrie Sommers, your local Los Angeles realtor. Today we're going to be talking about the pros and cons of today's extremely hot seller's market here in Los Angeles. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel yet, I want to ask you to take a moment to click the subscribe button below and the bell for updates, and we'll be right back. Hi everyone, it's me, Corrie Sommers, your local Los Angeles realtor. Today we're talking about the pros and cons of today's extremely hot seller's market. It's a seller's market nationwide, but here in Los Angeles, as well as a couple other key cities in America, we are extremely extreme. And so there's some pros and cons to that, and I want to go over these things with you. So our first one is a pro, and the pro is in today's extreme seller's market, if you price your home right. Did you hear what I just said? If you price your home right, and I've done a whole video on that, so if you missed it last week, I want you to go back and watch it. But if you've priced your home right, you will net more money for your home than the asking price. And why is that? Well, this is primarily because there's such a limited amount of inventory and the competition is stiff. There are a lot more buyers out there than there are homes, and buyers have to buy for very specific reasons. Sometimes it's about a 1031 exchange. Sometimes it's about kids are starting school and they need or desire to be in that school district. Sometimes it's about a job. People are starting to go back to work, and people in the medical community and some other fields that stayed working, they might have shifted location and they're needing to account for traffic. So they really need to be in your specific area, in your specific neighborhood, and they are willing to pay for it as long as they see that the value is there. Today, many buyers are going up in their budget. And you also have buyers that are, because the interest rates are so low and they're going up in their budget, it's shifting the locations, it's shifting how much home they could buy. But then you have buyers that are getting beaten out because the competition is really stiff. So they're regrouping, they're strategizing, they're talking with their agent. They're now looking at properties that are $300,000 to $400,000 to $500,000 less than what they can actually pay so that they can compete. This is a factor. Just like here in Los Angeles, we have to account for time and traffic. Right now, when you're buying a home, you have to account for money for competing against other offers. It is just a fact. You are not going to pay the current asking price of today's properties. You will not win the home that way. So let's say you purchased a new construction home maybe 3 years ago, back in 2019, and you're now thinking of selling it because you're working from home, you need more space, or you realize that, hey, I'm only going to have to report to my job twice a month and I can move somewhere else and get a lot more for my money. Well, in that case, even new construction homes are still getting more money than ask as long as they're pricing it right. And I keep referring to that. Pricing it right is so critical to getting more money than you are currently asking for. Buyers are not stupid. They don't like greedy sellers. They want value. A con to today's extreme seller's market is this. So you're getting a lot of money for your home. Where do you go next? I can't tell you how many times I hear that from someone thinking about selling their home, but where can I go next? And I'm going to give you a great example. I have a professional that I go to for my back, chiropractor, and he has a friend who's retired who kept getting calls from an aggressive agent who's saying, hey, I can sell your property for over $1 million. It's a 2,500 square foot condo, a top floor penthouse condo, 2,500 square feet for a condo. That's big. It's the size of a house, right? And he can get him over $1 million for this condo. So the guy is like, great. Let me think about that. And in thinking about that and processing it, he realized, I'm a single guy retired. I don't need 2,500 square feet. Really, I'm not even using all of my condo. I could comfortably live in 1,500 square feet. So we're going to the drawing board. We're looking for condos for 1,500 square feet. So here's the reality. Making such a profit, selling his current condo of 2,500 square feet for well over $1 million and scaling back to a 1,500 square foot condo, he's going to be able to pay it off cash. He's going to have some money still to put in his bank account or to supplement and beef up his retirement. Either way, that's a win. Now, that might not be the right situation for everyone. But that is the right situation for him. Now, of course, I would always be like, let's set that money up into an annuity or something. Let's make sure your money stretches and grows as much as possible. But even though prices are high, the other thing to think about, interest rates are still low. So maybe for you, you're still working in your home. So an option might be, instead of being in the LA basin, moving over to the valley. Or if you're living in the valley, but going to be working from home all the time, maybe an option is to move out to further valleys. There's the Simi Valley area where you can get more for your money. It's hot, but you know, a lot of properties have pool. There's the Santa Clarita Valley where, you know, it's really growing in leaps and bounds. I mean, I was just showing property there a couple weekends ago out by Magic Mountain, and Valencia and the area around Magic Mountain is just not what it was when I was a kid. When I was a kid, it was dark. There were no homes. There was one gas station. Now there's gas stations, hotels, Red Lobster, housing communities. Like you can live. One of the pros of today's extreme sellers market here in Los Angeles is the rate of equity increase you are getting today is phenomenal. So let's kind of talk about what that means. You know, people throw numbers out there all the time, and I feel like sometimes that's very misleading. So the national rate of return of equity increase in your property is typically 5 to 7%. Now here in Los Angeles, we've always outperformed that. Our average is 7 to 12%, right? But in this extreme sellers market, depending on where your home is, homes are getting an equity increase of 15%, 20%, some areas 28% year over year. This is not going to last. Now, this is not a sign of a crash. It's going to slow down. We're going to shift into a buyer's market. There will be more inventory. That rate of return will slow down to a more steady, normal rate of return, probably back to that 7 to 12%. But right now, these rates of returns are phenomenal. I mean, where else can you get that? You've got the stock market, right? Let's talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin has seen tremendous gains, but it's also had tremendous losses. So at the end of the day, you might not really have walked away with that much if you've been playing in that arena. And even with stocks, you can buy stocks in a company, but if that company goes bankrupt, your stock devalues and goes to zero. And believe me, I've had that happen more than once. It's not fun. Real estate is a hard physical asset that is not going to disappear. It's not a business that's going to go bankrupt. It's always going to be there. And so there's always a real estate cycle. And the pro of this is if you can stay in the upward trend, buy right, sell right, you're always going to be on top. So again, one of the pros with today's extreme sellers market is the rate of equity increase. You can almost count on your property value increasing. And 5 years from now, you might have increased 20, 30, 40%, and that is phenomenal. Okay, our last con regarding today's extreme sellers market has everything to do with the fact that this extreme sellers market is making it very difficult for buyers. Here's the thing. You're a new buyer, first-time home buyer, you're probably going to lose a couple offers. That does not mean your real estate agent is not good. That does not mean that people are playing games. That does not mean that ditching your agent and going to the listing agent is going to get you a deal. There are no deals. And going to a listing agent is not going to knock down the price. It's not going to get your offer accepted above other offers. That's just not happening. So throw that idea right out the window. The reality is that in today's market, you are going to have to make an offer higher than the current ask price because you are against competition. And for some buyers, especially first-time home buyers, this can be very uncomfortable. It's scary. You question this. There's a lot of distrust out there. You've heard of friends, family members, people buying homes 5-10 years ago and maybe even getting a deal, especially if they bought in the recession when the mortgage meltdown happened. That's just not today's market, okay? And you have to understand that the market we are in today is an extreme seller's market, which means I will never pressure my clients to spend more or pay more. But I will give you the facts, and I will give you what I'm seeing, and I will give you the reality of the market. So if I'm seeing that, hey, your $1.75 million offer is not going to cut it on this property, I'm going to tell you, I think you really should consider coming up to that 1.8 million. I think it's going to take that. So in this case, my client, we came in at our initial offer and we were countered, as was multiple other people. and they set a number. And so my client says, great, so if we get this, if we sign this, that means we get the property, right? No, that means we are accepting what they're suggesting, okay? If somebody else decides to counter higher, which very well could happen, we won't get this property. So my client was like, and thought about it and did not want to come up, which is fine. As the night progressed and as it got to the morning, early the next morning, he's calling me. He's like, hey, I see that the property is now under agreement. Can we offer $100,000 more? Well, now it's too late. The property sold to someone else. So I reached out to the agent. They said, I'm so sorry. I meant to call you back. Like our last touch base was like 6, 7, I think even 8 o'clock at night. And they were like, I'm going to call you back. I'm going to call you back. And they didn't. And the reason they didn't was because at the last minute, someone came up higher than our offer. And so their sellers were like, let's just do this. Let's take it, right? And the agent was very busy with that entire process. And so we missed the opportunity. So of course my seller was crushed. But in the conversation with the agent, if my seller would come up to that extra $100,000 that he was saying, hey, I could pay this, they would take us in the backup position. My client chose not to do that because now my client's feeling really bummed, upset, rejected, feels like, oh, this shouldn't have happened. And so decides to decline on that. Hey, that's totally fine. Let's look for something else, right? Fast forward 35 days later, the property has finally closed. And so the final purchase price is out there, public knowledge. And my client, I get this message, my client is very upset. How dare they accept an offer less than my offer? Well, that's not actually what happened. They accepted an offer higher than yours, but then they had home inspections. And as you saw, and as I've shared, this property needed complete cosmetic updating. Well, anyone is going to want to do a home inspection. And I always tell my clients, we should always do a home inspection, even if it's just for informational purposes, even if we need to remove that as a contingency to be competing against other offers, you still should know what's going on with the home. I firmly believe that. Unless somebody just had a home inspection done 6 months ago, then I think it's okay to get a copy of theirs and just use that. But anything beyond that, we should check out what's going on with the home. So during that home inspection process, even though the buyers offered more than our offer, were willing to pay more than our offer, now they started to negotiate based on some issues that were found in that home inspection. And I don't know the details. Nobody's obligated to reveal that. The seller's agent has a fiduciary duty to their seller, and they should never disclose such personal, confidential information to anybody, right? So we have no way of knowing what happened in that transaction. What I do know, and what I was able to confirm, was that there were negotiations that took place, and instead of doing repairs or replacing things that were found, the owners were willing to give a credit. Now, credits come in one of two forms: either credits towards closing costs, but if that dollar amount is significantly higher than the closing costs, or the buyers want the price adjusted and the seller is agreeing to that, that's one of two ways that credit gets done. It's either credit against your closing costs or credit against the total purchase price, which means the purchase price reduces from the actual agreed price because of that credit. And that's what happened here. That price reduced, it brought them below what our offer was. And of course, my client was very distraught about this and felt like, hey, this process doesn't seem right. There's some funny business going on. And that, quite frankly, to me is one of the biggest cons of today's extreme sellers market, especially for first-time home buyers. It really can be overwhelming. It can be discouraging. You can feel like this doesn't make sense. How is that possible? But just, when you haven't purchased a home before and you haven't gone through all that process and you've never done a negotiation and you've never gotten a credit, it might seem like a far-fetched idea. It just really might seem not believable, but just know no one has anything to gain by lying in these circumstances. At the end of the day, a listing agent is trying to get the most money for their client, and as a buyer's agent, we're trying to get you into the property that you really want. So that's a very big con in today's market, is that this competition is so heavy, so tough, and you might write a couple offers before you get one that sticks. That doesn't mean your agent's no good. It's just indicative of the competitiveness of today's market. So I hope this information, kind of going through some of the pros and cons of today's extreme sellers market here in Los Angeles, is helpful to you when it comes to selling or buying. If you are ready to get out there, or if you have some questions, you have some things you want to ask, I have a link below where you can get on my calendar, and we'll have a free no obligation consultation where we can talk about where you're at, what your goals are, and what you should do at this time. I really look forward to helping you. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. I will have a new video out next week. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel yet, you know what I'm going to say. Please click that subscribe button below and the bell for updates, and I'll be back next week.